good evening, everybody. So, as some of you know, I'm Gillian Bickley, one of the Proverse Publishers and co-founder with my husband, Verner Bickley, of the International Proverse Prizes for writing previously unpublished in English. Thank you to our loyal supporters and a warm welcome to those newly attending. Just a word about photographs and video. I hope you agree that if you accept a photograph or video footage of yourself, it may be put on the Proverse website, Facebook page, YouTube channel, etc., or similar. Do you agree? Yes. Anybody not agree? Perfect. Thank you very much. Felix Wong is our official videographer and one of the photographers this evening. Photographs will also be taken by Polly Ho, Adhem, I think, was going to take photographs, and the student helpers and other volunteers. If any of you take photographs or video clips, please send them to us after the event. First, we acknowledge and express our gratitude towards the Hong Kong Arts Development Council for the support provided from time to time in recent years towards the administration of the Proverse Prizes. The cash prizes, in each case, are donated by Verner and myself. We also thank HKADC for their publication support for some of the books we publish by Hong Kong authors, including by some present this evening. So, round of applause for Hong Kong Arts Development Council. I'd like you to meet some of the book authors who are here tonight. Authors, please stand up when your name is called so you can be acknowledged. Victor Apps, I think you're standing up already. You can just wave your hand. Philip Chatting, you're also standing up already. Catherine Chen, is Catherine there? Akin JJ, has Akin arrived yet? Not yet. JP Linstroth, not yet. Alan Lloyd is here. Where's Alan?
I'm here.
Wave. Face everybody. Doris Eng. Doris, stand up so everybody can see you. Jose Manuel Sevilla. Is Jose here? Not yet. And Peter Cookson Smith has come and gone. So thank you very much. Books by Stuart. Stuart is also here. Stuart. So Stuart is there. Stuart. Books by most of these authors are on the book table. All are available on Amazon. Please support them by showing curiosity in their work. Novels, poetry collections, memoirs, short story collections, young adult fiction. 3 books will be launched tonight: a novel, a poetry collection, and a poetry anthology. Philip Chatting will introduce his novel, Dewfall. Haley Ann Solomon will introduce Bewitched and Beguiled, Poetry of Enchantment. And Geoffrey Streeter will introduce Mingle Voices 10, the Proverse Poetry Prize Anthology 2025. Some of the anthologized poets will read their poems. I'd like now to pay tribute to my husband, Verner Bickley, co-founder of the International Proverse Prizes and managing director of Proverse Hong Kong, who was with us until the 9th of February last year. Today, the 28th of April, 2026, would have been his 100th birthday. Verner had many gifts, including with both the written and the spoken word. To remind us of one of the many pleasures that Verner gave, here is a poem recorded about 35 years ago, which gives us a taste of his talent for the spoken word. Some of you may be familiar with it.
Abou ben Adhem by Leigh Hunt. Abou ben Adhem, may his tribe increase, awoke one night from a deep dream of peace, and saw within the moonlight in his room, making it rich and like a lily in bloom, an angel writing in a book of gold. Exceeding peace had made Ben Adhem bold, and to the presence in the room he said, "What writest thou?" The vision raised its head, and with a look made of all sweet accord, answered, "The names of those that love the Lord." "And is mine one?" said Abou. "Nay, not so," replied the angel. Abou spoke more low, but cheerly still, and said, "I pray thee then, write me as one that loves his fellow men." The angel wrote and vanished. The next night it came again with a great wakening light, and showed the names whom love of God had blessed. And lo, Ben Adhem's name led all the rest.
I'm sure you'll agree, it's a beautiful reading. Some of Verner's books are on the book table, giving an indication of the variety of his written work. Others were shown in the pre-event slideshow. But Verner was also an administrator and had considerable experience in encouraging others to produce their best work and in evaluating it. It was a natural further step for the 2 Proverse Prizes to come into being. In this personal initiative, Verner and I have always had welcome support from individuals of goodwill. We thank them all. Tonight, I acknowledge one person present this evening who, in his private capacity, helped us to frame the entry regulations and the procedures for the judging process, and participated in early administration of the Proverse Prize. Thank you, Patrick. We're lucky that we have video recordings of some of Verner's comments about the prizes. Here is what he had to say about them in 2017.
Well, these International Proverse Prizes are special in that they are open to everyone, at least 18 years old, at the time of submitting their entry, irrespective of nationality or residence or citizenship. That makes them somewhat special. The Proverse Prize for book-length work is in its 9th year of competition. The Proverse Poetry Prize for single poems is in its 2nd year. The International Proverse Poetry Prize, too many P's, is for poems of any genre or style no more than 30 lines long. The topic may be chosen by entrants, or they may choose the subject set by the administrators.
So just to repeat, that recording was made in 2017. We've already had several more editions of the Proverse Prize and the Proverse Poetry Prize. I'm very pleased to welcome this evening Neville and Farida Schroff. Mr. Schroff is President of the Incorporated Trustees of the Zoroastrian Charity Funds of Hong Kong, Canton and Macau, and President of the Royal Commonwealth Society of Hong Kong, among many other important responsibilities. You may already know that the Parsi community in Hong Kong has played a significant role in Hong Kong education. A prominent member of the Parsi community, Sir Horace J. Naroje Modi, was a major donor behind the establishment of the University of Hong Kong in 1911. A bust of this gentleman is prominently on view in the main building of the university. Neville knew Verner through the Royal Commonwealth Society, which aims to promote friendship, communication, and cooperation among people of the Commonwealth. Verner was a past chairman of the Society and long-term council member. I have pleasure in inviting Neville to speak to us.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Gillian. And I'm indeed honoured to say a few words this evening. I understand that participants in the Proverse Prizes come from several countries of the Commonwealth, but also from many other countries, including those where English is not the mother tongue. The founders, administrators, and supporters of the Proverse Prizes are to be congratulated for reaching so widely and giving opportunities to so many. I understand that in the inaugural year of 2009, those who entered their work for the Proverse Prize wrote how happy they were that there was finally a prize that they could enter. The founders had correctly identified a need. Gillian has mentioned that Fred and I belong to the Parsi community here. Parsis are descended from the Zoroastrian refugees who migrated from Iran, then Persia, to the Indian subcontinent between the 18th and 10th centuries to escape religious persecution. Parsi merchants came to China in the 18th century with the expansion of the East India Company. Some time later, they made Hong Kong their home. My children are now fourth generation, and my family lives in Hong Kong. Because of the historical connection with the Indian subcontinent, I am particularly interested in the participation of Indian writers in the Proverse Prizes. The first prize winner of the Proverse Poetry Prize, Single Poems in 2025, awarded this evening, is to Tanusha Nagrath, originally from Nepal, but now living in Bombay, entering for the prize for the second time. Vanita Agrawal, who now lives in Indore, enters regularly for the Proverse Poetry Prize. Without fail, she wins a place in the Mingled Voices anthology series. She has placed third twice, in 2017 and 2024, and was specially mentioned in 2022. In 2021, Vanita won the Proverse Prize for a book-length poetry collection, Twilight Language. Also in 2021, Nikhil Parak of Ahmedabad, Gujarat State, won a publication prize with his book-length poetry collection, Seeking Solace. A sprinkling of other Indian poets, resident either in India or Hong Kong, have also participated, including Shahila Sharif, who won a 2011 publication prize for her poetry collection, Lifelines, and Vishal Nanda, who won a 2020 publication prize for his poetry collection, Please Stand Back from the Platform Door. Verner was particularly interested in cultural learning and cultural understanding, hoping that work in these areas could lead to a more tolerant, peaceful, and collaborative world. And for this and other works, he was greatly respected. By inviting people worldwide to share their interests and creativity, their thoughts and feelings, through literature, the Proverse Prizes undoubtedly work towards these goals. I congratulate all associated with the Proverse Prizes and look forward to hearing from some of the writers this evening. Once again, I thank Gillian for this opportunity. Thank you all and have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much again. Thank you so much. Although Tanusha Nagrath, the first prize winner in the 2025 Proverse Poetry Prize competition, cannot be with us from India, two of the third prize winners are here from overseas. Graham Wood from Australia and JP Lindstruth, who I see has arrived now, from the USA. Welcome, Graham and John, and thank you for your support. Please be ready to come forward to receive your award. Farida, would you like to come up and thank you? Can I have Graham? Can I have Graham first? Thank you so much. Is Margaret Lone here? Farida, I need you to come back here. And Dr. Lindstreth, would you please come? So this is coming.
I also brought something from the United States for you, Dr. Bickley.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just going to give it to you.
Should we do that?
This
Oh,
is
thank you
very
so
informal,
much.
yeah.
What have I
I
got?
don't know if it's your size.
What have I got? What have I got?
Yeah, it's a sweatshirt.
Oh, well, there we are.
Is that
As long as it doesn't
little surprise for you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. No worries. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Be careful.
Yep, yep.
Okay, all right. Thanks so very much. Thank you, Farida. So Verner worked for the British Council from the late 50s to the early 70s and retained close links with the Council ever after. The last words in Verner's first book of memoirs, Footfalls Echo in the Memory, published in 2010, are an acknowledgement of his debt to the Council, which he describes as an organisation which is still very much alive and certainly a power for good. We're most grateful for the support regularly given for the work of Proverse by successive senior staff of the British Council in Hong Kong. I have great pleasure in inviting Mrs. Susanna Morley, Susie, Director, British Council Hong Kong, to speak to us. Susanna. Now you know the
Thank you very much, Gillian. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Gillian asked me to say a few words about Verner, who I first met, I think, back in about 2015, not long after I returned to Hong Kong. And I know that my predecessors, previous directors, were very much in awe of Verner, and rightly so. Anyway, I just thought I'd say a few words about Verner, given that he would have been 100 years old today. He shared his birth year with many notable figures, including the late Queen Elizabeth II, Sir David Attenborough, Marilyn Monroe, and Jiang Zemin. He also shared a birthday with American novelist Harper Lee. So Verner was born in 1926, a year in which the world was still recovering from the trauma of the First World War. In the UK, there was a general strike which brought the country to a standstill. China was in the grip of civil war. Emperor Hirohito ascended the Japanese throne. And here in Hong Kong, July saw the worst rainstorm in the city's history, when more than 500 millimetres of rain fell in a single night, triggering devastating floods and landslides. Elsewhere in the world, Gertrude Ederle became the first woman to swim the English Channel, and Al Capone was at the height of his powers as a Chicago gang boss. So a very different world in many respects, but in others, I think some eerie parallels. Verner belonged to what is often called the greatest generation a generation that was shaped by seismic global events, including the Great Depression of the 1930s, and one that was just old enough to serve during the Second World War. And I've always thought of this generation as one that placed duty and service to others above self-interest, and that was genuinely committed to the greater good. And I think Verner's life exemplified these values. As Gillian said, early in his career, Verner worked for the British Council, and during his time with the organisation, he was posted to Burma, Indonesia and Japan, and he was part of a pioneering generation of British Council officers and official representatives who in the post-war years established the organisation's international network and helped to define its mission to build friendly knowledge and understanding between the UK and people around the world through English, education and arts and culture. The foundations laid by Verner and his contemporaries are an important reason why the UK continues to enjoy its position as a leading soft power nation. Given Verner's long association with the British Council, it's perhaps unsurprising that the Proverse Prizes and the British Council share a common philosophical approach to the English language. At the British Council, we believe that English is a universal language which, although it originated in the British Isles, belongs to everyone. In the same spirit, the Proverse Prizes are open to writers of all nationalities. Founding literary prizes is a remarkable legacy in itself, but over the course of his long and distinguished life, Verner made significant and lasting contributions to education, scholarship and cultural relations, as well as to the advancement of English language and literature. In recognition of these contributions, he was awarded the MBE by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in 1966. In the post-war years, English has taken on a life far beyond the UK. It has become a tool for communication and self-expression across the world, and like the Proverse Prizes, is open to all, regardless of nationality, residency or citizenship. Now, Gillian has asked me to go on and say a few words about the launch of the 3 books. So I'm going to continue with the second part of the proceedings this evening. So we're celebrating the launch of 3 books, all part of the Proverse Prizes programme, and one of these is Philip Chatting's novel, Dewfall. I know that Philip is here. Philip was an early winner of the Proverse Prize with The Snowbridge and Other Stories, published in 2015. He has described these stories as having had their beginnings in the plain observations of ordinary people's ordinary lives, in corners of the world where fortune and circumstance have taken them: London, Manila, Hong Kong, Saigon, the Sussex Downs and San Francisco. His new book is a dystopian novel that uses an alien environment to explore the nature of the human psyche. It is a tribute to both Philip and to Proverse that writer and prize have persisted together for so long across literary endeavour and across such different genres. To date, the Proverse Prize has been won by 25 works written by 25 different writers. The Proverse Publication Prize has been awarded to an even larger number of works and authors. The Proverse Prize has been won almost equally by men and women, 13 men and 12 women. I think that number needs to even up. In terms of nationality, there have been winners from the UK, from the US, from China, from South America, the South American nations, from Australia, from New Zealand, Italy, Germany, Malaysia, India and South Korea, so pretty much all continents. The winning works span many genres: 12 novels, 3 of them autobiographical, 7 poetry collections, 2 works of young adult fiction, 1 biography, 1 family memoir, 1 short story collection, and 1 work of mixed genre combining essays and poetry. Their settings range widely from ancient China to Australia, Borneo, Hong Kong, the US, Israel, London, China, the Netherlands and South Korea. as well as fictional developing and totalitarian countries, and even the personal geographies of writers themselves. The first prize in the Proverse Poetry Prize, too many P's, as Verner said, for single poems has been won by writers resident in the US, in the UK, India, China, Lithuania, and Australia. Other first prize winners have had equally varied backgrounds, often spanning 2 or more places, including Hong Kong, the UK, USA, New Zealand, Poland, Cuba, Austria, and Chile. I mean, I think that list just exemplifies how the international reach of the Proverse Prizes, which clearly contribute to the creation of international friendship and cultural understanding. And I think now you know a little bit more about Verner's early life, you can see how these goals have always been central to his life and work. I'd like to close by first of all thanking Gillian very much for this evening, and also by congratulating all the writers featured this evening. Thank you.
Unusually, we're taking time to celebrate a publication by another publisher, Otago University Press, New Zealand. We've pleasure in inviting Mr. Peter Lund, New Zealand Consul General in Hong Kong, to explain how this has come about, and also to congratulate another New Zealand writer, Hayley Ann Solomon, on her second Proverse book in half a year. A very prolific lady. Peter.
Thank you, Gillian. Good evening, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here and to join friends from Proverse Hong Kong and to acknowledge the great legacy of Dr. Verner Bickley, who, as we've noted, would be celebrating his 100th birthday today. But it gives me great pleasure to talk about a New Zealand writer, James Norcliffe, who was a finalist in the Proverse Prize with his poetry collection, Shadow Play, which Proverse wonderfully published in 2012. And James and Gillian worked together very closely to make the book well known. And for the first time, James's work was reviewed in London. James went on and in 2022 in New Zealand won the New Zealand Prime Minister's Prize for Literary Achievement in Poetry. And tonight we share the good news that this year in March, a wonderful edition of James's selected works was published by the Otago University Press under the title A Day Like No Other. The book contains work from 6 publishers, I understand, 5 New Zealand publishers and significantly Proverse as well here in Hong Kong. James was introduced to the Proverse Prize by the New Zealand, Hong Kong and Philippines poet and critic Vaughan Rapatahana, who was the winner, I understand, Gillian, the very first Proverse Poetry Prize. And other New Zealand writers have also participated successfully in both these prizes, notably the late Laura Solomon, who won the inaugural Proverse Prize, and Hayley Ann Solomon, whose 4th Proverse book, Bewitched and Beguiled, is being launched this evening. And one of Hayley's other works we highlighted last year, didn't we? Last year was Hayley's revisionist approach to fairy tales. Once Upon a Fairer Time was launched, and I'd like to congratulate Hayley for her energy and enthusiasm and fantastic output. And I certainly look forward to being bewitched and beguiled by her new book. But I'm particularly pleased to be congratulating James Norcliffe on the recognition he has achieved, because would you believe it, James was my English teacher at secondary school. And that was, dare I say, that was way last century in Christchurch, New Zealand at Shirley Boys High School. And I would have to say that James was indeed one of the most inspiring teachers that I had the pleasure of being taught by. New Zealand, of course, is a small country, and we often talk about there being no degree of separation. Everyone has some sort of linkage or connection to each other. So it really is an honour and when Gillian contacted me, an unexpected delight and a privilege to be acknowledging James this evening. James is a prolific author, and as well as poetry, he's written short stories and novels, both for young people and adults. And I can recommend his adult novel, The Frog Prince, that was published in 2022. Well, look, to conclude, could I congratulate everyone that we're honouring tonight, particularly Philip for his book Dewfall, and all the poets that are being published in this anthology, Mingled Voices. Thank you, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here this evening. Kia ora. Oh, yes. Oh, I'll have to track James down. Yes, I will.
Thanks. Thank you very much indeed. So now we come to the results of the 2024 and 2025 Proverse Prize competitions. The finalists for the Proverse Prize 2025 are Mr. David Gans of Australia with a work of non-fiction, and a name that we've heard already this evening, Miss Hayley Ann Solomon with 2 novels that are both on the finalist lists. The other semi-finalists, Rena Ong and J.V. Lindstruth, who's here this evening, were announced last November, and they'll be considered for Proverse Publication Prizes, possibly along with other 2025 entrants. These results will be announced in November this year. We thank all other entrants and hope they will consider repeat participation. A lot of people keep on entering. We're very happy to see them again and again. As for the Proverse Prize 2024, we have pleasure in introducing 2 writers whose works are published as Proverse Publication Prizes. Again, all those P's. First, Philip Chatting will introduce his novel, Dewfall. Philip, your turn.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A little more than 10 years ago, from exactly this place, I had the pleasure of launching The Snowbridge and Other Stories, a collection of short stories which in the previous year had won the Proverse Prize for a full-length work. Again, from this same spot in 2019, Proverse did me the honour of launching my novel, As Leaves Blow. In a literary career marked by long spaces between productive results, today was a welcome and indeed significant personal event. For keeping faith with me through my journey, I have to thank Gillian, her husband, the late Dr Verner Bickley, and of course Proverse Hong Kong, for their patience in bringing me back again today, this time with the blessing and support of the Hong Kong Arts Development Council, to mark and celebrate the launch of yet another volume, which for reasons I'll explain has been more than 40 years in the making. I must also thank my dear wife Del and youngest son Matthew for providing the permission necessary for any artist working alone. To my son Andrew on the far side of the Pacific Ocean for early editorial insight, and my son Mark for technical expertise that puts me to shame, who, between them, have supported the pursuit of a dream with valued contributions. At some risk to your comfort, I feel obliged to quote from the memoirs of P.G. Wodehouse, who attended more book launches than you can shake a stick at, and who, like many creative minds, had more opinions than were really decent. Book talks, he said, were the dullest speeches I've ever heard. Being told for 3/4 of an hour how a beastly book was written, when a simple apology was all that was required, was more than anyone should be asked to bear. In anticipation of reactions similar to those described by Wodehouse, who, despite his cynicism, established a reputation which 9 out of 10 authors would envy, I will endeavour to be brief and relate what drove me to write Due For, while continuing to bear in mind another Wodehouse comment that an author who expects results from an early novel is in a position similar to that of a man dropping a rose petal into the Grand Canyon and listening for the echo. We are, in other words, mere scribblers and hostages to fortune, fashion, a little luck, and our own inescapable vanity. Again, and within the context of a long life's reflection on the state of mankind, its sometimes ascent into the heavens, and as often affinity for devils, and a personal need to say something, however unpalatable it may be, Due For became the result after an age in the making. The first line of my once putative novel, which does not appear in the final book, was written in 1985, on the fringes of the Arabian desert, where I and many others were constructing a seat of learning, far from what in these days many Westerners and Orientalists alike viewed as its traditional haunt. My perception then and now is that while mankind can be godlike in his reason, he is at the same time deeply flawed, and nothing can save him from his own corrosive nature and discontent. And that is why all those years ago I composed on an Olivetti typewriter the opening line, while hoping my point of view would resonate, and which reads as follows. And it came to pass that the fair children of the planet Earth, in their endless discontent, spread across the cosmos to new suns and new beginnings, from where, as time passed, they eventually corrupted all they touched. My attempt throughout the book has been to throw some light on the human condition. In the modern world, we are often what jobs and economic circumstances decree. This person is a doctor, this a barber, another a businessman being chauffeured in a limousine, and yet another a street sweeper. And our relationships, reaction to authority, demand for service, respect or disrespect are all products of these conditions. Do we, in other words, have any will to decide, or are we inevitably bound by circumstance and where our genes take us? In Due For, everyone starts out equal. How and why should that change? Why and where do some learn to command and others obey? Are we born to live in communities, or are we better off living alone? These are deep philosophical questions, and in my exploration, I've only begun to scratch the surface. Perhaps, given time, I'll be able to probe these issues more thoroughly. But at the speed at which I produce books, my publisher and audience might have to wait another 10 years. In the meantime, I shall continue to wrestle with the challenges inherent in works of total imagination, which in this case prevented drawing on any context of time and place. The characters of Due For, by definition, exist in a unique set of circumstances, without history, education, memory, or social structure, such as family, tribe, or nation. There are no predetermined allegiances, and none of the usual reference points. At the outset, the people have no tools, no names, no recognition of different genders, no concepts of time, distance, or numbers. They are, to all intents and purposes, dropped into their situation intellectually naked, although I was compelled to provide a common language to make sense of the narrative. This situation presented limitations. I couldn't, for example, say the river was a mile away. But more difficult than that, I was unable to use common figures of speech, such as metaphors or similes. Phrases like, he's a rough diamond, or she cries like a baby, because apart from no one knowing what a he or a she was, none could comprehend the concepts of a diamond or baby. Authors are, of course, not above a certain arrogance in their compulsion to speak and desire to be understood. If, however, they lay any claim to virtue, it may not be one of their doing, in that books can be set aside when they do not please, unlike today's social media, which amplifies the words, however fatuous, of those who thrust themselves into the lives of everyone, whether they want to listen or not. And during the long time that the desire to share thought burned inside me, it had to be set in the context of being a husband and father, who was obliged to earn a living. Only now, and after 6 years of retirement, have I been able to pick up the threads again and complete a long promised and long delayed project, which stayed close to my heart for many years. Thank you all for the opportunity to share some of the stories behind U4.
Thank you very much, Philip. Well done. Congratulations. All that work. Waiting for another 10 years. Thank you. Now, we're now going to have a group of videos from those who couldn't, on this occasion, travel to Hong Kong. Right, so Hayley's video now. This is Hayley. Hayley Ann Solomon recorded her introduction to Bewitched and Beguiled.
Good evening, and thank you for joining the Proverse Spring Reception 2026. I'm so pleased to have the chance to introduce Bewitched and Beguiled, Poetry of Enchantment. I would like to thank Gillian Bickley, whose commitment to poetry and to nurturing international voices is ongoing. I really appreciate her editorial input. Bewitched and Beguiled grew from a long-standing love of both literary tradition and imaginative freedom. I have always been fascinated by the music and architecture of poetry, the ways rhythm, structure, and language can shape a thought into something so precise and resonant. I wanted to write something a little different in tone and structure from Once Upon a Fairy Time, Classic Tales Revised in Rhyme, which was launched recently at the Proverse Autumn Reception. I wanted to write structurally something in iambic pentameter, but also something that was less fair. Greek mythology is horribly unjust, so it was a good place to start. The collection begins very deliberately in the classical world. It opens with 2 crowns of heroic sonnets, one centered on Circe, the enchantress of Homer's Odyssey, and the other on Athena, goddess of wisdom. A crown of sonnets is a particularly intricate form, where each poem links to the next through repeating lines, forming a circular structure. I was drawn to that form because it reflects the sense of myth itself, stories that echo through time, returning to their origins even as they evolve. Circe represents sensual enchantment, transformation, and the darker edges of power. Athena, by contrast, embodies reason, wisdom, and the disciplined clarity of thought. Between them, there forms something of a philosophical dialogue, enchantment balanced by intellect, magic tempered by reason. From there, the book moves into the tragedies, absolute tragedies of Prometheus and Pandora, where the form loosens into freer verse. Prometheus' gift of fire to humanity and the terrible consequent punishment that follows raises enduring questions about innovation, curiosity, and the price of knowledge. At the center of the book, the tone shifts again. It's a bit of a bridge between tragedy, existential questioning, self-actualization, and joy. In the poem, If I Were a Mermaid, the voice becomes more personal and reflective. The speaker moves through uncertainty and existential doubt, wondering what sort of being she might choose to be. Gradually, that uncertainty transforms into something hopeful, a conscious choice of kindness, joy, and generosity of spirit. From that moment, the collection moves towards playfulness and whimsy, and the final section embraces the joyful tradition of nonsense verse, where goblins and tooth fairies inhabit a world governed by imagination and delight. That movement from formal sonnet to freer verse to playful nonsense mirrors what I love about poetry, its ability to travel between seriousness and laughter, philosophy and fantasy, discipline and freedom. The artwork is very special. A big thank you to my lovely husband Clive for his thematically relevant and beautiful black and white images. I'll just give you a little glimpse at one or two of them. Okay, this is the This is the mermaid, and as you can see, she's in a very pensive mode. It's a little bit gloomy, very subtle. You can see a galleon if you look closely. We have a very much happier mermaid illustrated as well, somewhere along the way. Oh, this is Prometheus on the rock, having his liver picked out by an eagle. Not very nice. Let me see if I can find... Oh, there was Athena there. Athena in a Greek helmet, writing equations and representing wisdom and knowledge. In many ways, Bewitched and Beguiled is a journey from myth to imagination, from tragedy to joy. It explores questions about reason, kindness, and hope, but it also celebrates the playful freedom of storytelling. If readers find themselves wandering through ancient myth, existential musings, mermaid dreams, and finally into the riotous company of goblins and joy fairies, don't be surprised. The collection is full of surprises. Thank you again. I hope that as you read Bewitched and Beguiled, you find moments of wonder, reflection, and the odd enchanted tangle of tongue. And I hope you have a wonderful evening tonight. I really wish I was with you in Hong Kong, but I'm sure it'll be a fantastic gathering, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much to Hayley. So thank you to Hayley for her creativity and hard work. She's just writing all the time. We now come to the launch of Mingled Voices 10. Mingled Voices 10 is an anthology of poems by about 60 poets writing from Hong Kong and around the world. Australia, Canada, Chile, Ireland, New Zealand, the People's Republic of China, Portugal, Singapore, the USA, and the UK. These were selected by the judges last summer from the Proverse Poetry Prize 2024 entries. 2025 entries. Well, yeah, 2025 entries. The set topic was The Gift. Poems could be on any subject also, chosen by each poet, and in any form, style, or genre, typically no more than 30 lines long. And I'd like to mention that the very nice photograph on the cover is taken by Sadie Kay. There's Sadie there. Thank you very much, Sadie. The Proverse Poetry Prize first prize winner the previous year, 2024, Jo Fei, lives in Beijing, and she has sent a message.
Hi, here's my message to Mingled Voice 10. The Poet's Lover, my poem that won first place in the International Proverse Poetry Prize 2024, tells the story of a poet and that of love, a genre I have rarely attempted but found myself writing at that particular time. According to John Berger, drawing on Walter Benjamin's ideas, there are two types of storytellers: those who reside in cities contained by the capital of modern society, and those who live in remote areas, governed by themselves as managers of their own time. Between these two modes of living, I have always felt suspended, belonging fully to neither, yet shaped deeply by both. Unfortunately, I live in a metropolitan megacity, yet I was once blessed to live a rural life. To move forward or backward has always been my dilemma. This might be true for many of us today, as the end of history in Walter Benjamin's imagination, though driven relentlessly into the future, keeps its eyes fixed on the past. Like us, the angel is thrust into the storm of time or progress, and holding on to something becomes my anchor. For me, that something is poetry. So I would be a poet who, in Dante's universe, would roam in limbo, the first circle of the infernal architecture, together with newborn babies, artists, scientists, philosophers, and pagans. Beneath the limbo lies the second circle, where those who were overcome by love wander endlessly. I think I would be honored to be there, for I would be so close to love. At the same time, I would feel a strange exhilaration at being cast there, though, as Giorgio Agamben notes, that such souls may not know why they are there or whether they need to be saved, nor are they aware that they are deprived of the vision of God. They live in a state of natural happiness. I believe there would always be hope that, since I would remain so close to the mortal world, I might get back into the material realm, a freedom I could not secure except through poetry. Speaking of time, the time I received the news of my award very soon witnessed the passing of Dr. Verner Bickley, the dedicated co-founder of the Proverse Poetry Prize. The coincidence of recognition and the farewell felt almost allegorical. As one voice is acknowledged, another quietly recedes. I was overwhelmed to see the video of the memorial service and resolved that poetry should be the eternal course we pursue. All of this reminds me that poetry is not only written in solitude, but sustained by those who believe in its enduring value as a community. In that sense, he remains a part of the mingled voice that carries poetry forward.
So thank you very much to Zoe. We value and thank her for her loyal and stimulating participation in the Proverse Poetry Prize, and thank her also for her expression of feeling and thoughtful comments about the co-founder of the Proverse Prizes, Verner Bickley.